I am the interim director for the Community Development Department. We truly appreciate that you're taking the time to learn about this ordinance. That is very important, that truly has been discussed for so many years and finally is implemented here in the city. And let's jump into what it is, so that if there is any doubt about it, we can provide an answer. What is an ordinance? What is the Rent Stabilization Ordinance? It's a local law designed to regulate rental increases and offer protections to tenants. And one thing that is very important is that the main goal is really to bring the stability, to bring a balance, right, between obviously the tenants and the landlords, so that there is a fair market, that the rental market is balanced. And that is the goal. What happened, how is that it came became an ordinance? The City Council conducted the first reading on November 4th, The second reading, when it was adopted, was November 18th. And then finally, 30 days after, based on statute, California statute, 30 days after it became a law. So now, this ordinance is part of our municipal code. You can find it. It has a chapter, it has a section, and you can find the whole document now embedded into the municipal code. So what does it mean? That means that now we have to abide by that, right? We need to respect what that represents. And what are the key provisions for tenants? This workshop is for tenants. Next week, we're going to have a couple of workshops for the landlords, property owners. But today, we're going to talk about the key provisions that pertains to this ordinance and that are associated to the tenants. What is the annual rent cap? So it's 3%. It's 3% annually, or the local consumer price index. And that CPI changes every year. Okay, so for the local county, right now, the county of LA, I believe is 3.8. So the ordinance is saying, okay, so it's 3% or the CPI, whatever is lower. And because the CPI is higher, then we go with the 3%. If at any point the CPI goes down to 2.5, then that will be the increment, the annual increment that we can increase to the rent. And it has to be every 12 months. Now, the only discrepancy here that we have, and it is important to highlight it, is that probably some of you, once the property owners learn about this, they decided to send you a notice stating that they were going to increase the rent. And they send it on November, October, or December. And they stated, oh, by the way, coming January, coming February, we're going to increase the rent 10%. But guess what? They can't. Because if they didn't do it before, if the increase didn't take place before December 19, then they cannot do it. They can only do the 3%. So we'll wait for the questions. That's why this is an opportunity to, otherwise we're going to stop and then we're going to have an opportunity to answer questions. Is that okay? I may answer your question.
In relation to that, but it's okay.
Yeah, but just write it down. If you have, if you can bring a card,
It's okay.
I'll appreciate it. If you can wait for it. It's not a long presentation, so
It's okay.
okay? Thank you. So that is very important to understand. Also, based on the provision, the state provision that was adopted by the state of California back in 2019, we probably remember that it was a retroactive. This is not. Okay, that 2019 California state law regarding the housing is not, that one was retroactive. This is not. So that's why if they didn't do it before December 19, then they have to abide by the new regulation. What are the units that are exempt? This is very important because, I mean, we don't know sometimes where we live, right? We don't know how legally are classified or identified. Well, in this case, these are the units that based on this ordinance that are exempt. So the first one is that any unit that has a certificate of occupancy that was issued before February 1st, 1995. That's the first one. So any of these buildings or rental units that we have out there that were built in 2000, 2005, 2010, we don't have that many, then they will be exempt. If that is not the case, your unit is, was built in the 50s or the 60s, then they're not exempt. The second set is a single family homes, all the single family homes, we understand the term. Any condominiums that are owned by the individual, that they are exempt, in townhomes. The third section is any subsidized housing. So all of those housing units that are being subsidized by the state, federal, or any other public program, they are also exempt. So they're not going to be part of this program. The ordinance doesn't apply to it. Section A and many other programs that probably receive subsidized support, then it's not applicable. And finally, properties with no more than 2 rental units in which one of the units are being occupied by the owner. Okay, so if you have 2 units, you live on one, you rent the other one, that is exempt. But if you have 3 units and you live on one, then the ordinance applies. Continue. Another provision that is important, and I believe that it was included here in the council when they approved it. It was very important. Is that landlords can recover 50% of costs for significant property improvements, and they have to basically distribute this within 5 years. Cannot be done on 6 months, a period of 6 months, a year. It has to be minimum of 5 years. And we're talking about any improvements that truly are going to directly affect the tenant. We're talking about plumbing issues, heating, air conditioning, all of those things that directly affect or improve the quality of life of the individual. Because see, the property owner cannot come, the landlord cannot come and say, well, I painted a house, the whole unit from the outside. I added some, landscaping around. Well, yeah, those are aesthetic issues, but truly, you're responsible for that. You have always been responsible, and there are other codes from the city that apply. So, 50% of those costs, he can, compile that information. They said $5,000 that he spent on fixing something, $10,000. And then he will probably pass that on to the tenants up to 50%. And there is a process in order to approve that. That is regulated by the ordinance. Another provision that is very important, notifications, right? We're always thinking about, okay, how is that I'm going to get notified? The first one is at least 30 days prior to any approved rent increase beyond the limit. A notification must be provided. So how does this work? So what's going to happen is that it may happen that the landlord, the payments on the property and other issues, that may take place within the property. Certainly, that 3% is not enough to cover the expenses, to cover everything that he needs to cover, or that person needs to cover, the property owner has to cover. Then they can petition. That landlord can come to the city, petition, and bring detailed financial records in order to get approval and to get that price on the rent adjustment. But there's going to be a process to do that. They have to submit a petition, bring the documents, and then we're going to revise that. So once that takes place, he has to notify everybody. He has to post something in the middle of, if there are many units, maybe a common area, they have to post it there. They have to provide, utilize some type of personal, delivery, a messenger, or has to be certified mail. And before issuing a notice to terminate a tenancy, it's another notification, for just cause, that is a fixed lease violation. So you're gonna get a notification. Let's say that you're in breach of any of the stipulations on the contract, then the landlord is supposed to notify you and tell you, okay, you have up to this day in order to fix this, in order to comply with the contract, your contract obligations. You have to be notified, and with that notification has to be a time stipulated and a way to fix it. So if you don't comply as a tenant, then eventually a final notification, an eviction notice is going to come without the opportunity to fix that. So the ordinance is providing an opportunity for you as a tenant to fix that and to receive a notification stating, fix it please, and this is the time frame before an final eviction notification comes through. The next slide is, we continue with the tenant protections. All the evictions must be based on a valid reason, right? We hear so many stories about someone being evicted because of, they brought a cat, now they have a cat, they have a dog, they have a pet, they were having a birthday party and then the music was too loud and the landlord doesn't like me and then I got an eviction notice. We hear all of these stories, but the reality is that under this ordinance, it has to be justified, right? It has to be a justified reason, and that is when you, if you engage in any illegal activity, if you violate, you breach your contract obligations, then we're going to have to, the landlord is going to have to do something, and it's going to be a valid reason. You don't want that to happen. In cases where tenants are not at fault, right? So let's say that you're the best tenant, right, ever. You're good, you fulfill all the obligations, you pay your rent on time, you don't make any noise, everything is going well, and nevertheless, you receive a notice that, now your landlord is going to occupy the unit. Well, that is going to take place only under certain circumstances and for specific circumstances. One of them is that the landlord or anyone from a relative, daughter, son, wife, someone is going to move in. It's the first reason. The second one is that the unit is going to be taken out of the market for 24 months. And then we have to be notified about that. And another one is that, what's the other one? Because when you receive an order by a government institution that you have to empty the space. Those are the only occasions or reasons why you could be notified and have a no fault eviction notice. Okay, I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. And the ordinance also has something that is very important. I'm sorry. And then if that happens, if for whatever reason you receive that notice, that eviction notice, and you are not at fault, then the property owner, the landlord, has to provide relocation assistance equal to 2 months. Okay, so the last 2 months you decide if you don't want to pay the last 2 months or you want to receive the money at the end of your contractual, obligation. Another area that is very critical with this ordinance is the anti-retaliation measure, and that's to protect the tenants. In the past, we constantly, I don't know how many meetings we have had with the tenants, and the issue is, well, I don't complain, I don't say anything, I don't, submit any to my landlord because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that he's gonna tell me, well, you have to, move out, or he's gonna increase the rent, or something is gonna happen. So this ordinance protects the tenants from any retaliation, such as rent hikes, eviction threats, or for you exercising your legal rights. And that is very important. Sometimes we don't complain, we don't raise our voices because we think that something's going to happen. We shouldn't do that. We should definitely understand this ordinance, see how it works. That's why these meetings are so important, and then move forward with the mechanisms that we have in order to protect ourselves. Let's move on with tenant protections. The rental increases or evictions may be void, and this is very important, okay? If a landlord fails to raise with the city. On Monday, we're going to have probably a different presentation, because we're going to explain to the public, hopefully the majority landlords, a process that the city is going to have, an online process in order to raise their units. They have to. If they don't do it, if they fail to do that, then they're going to be in violation of the new ordinance, and they're not going to be able to charge for rent. So that is very critical. They have to, and that's why when they finish and they complete the process, they're gonna get some type of notification, and that notification is the one that is supposed to be provided to you, so that you know that the landlord has raised through the system. And it's a system like any other rent stabilization program from other cities. We're working on that right now, and I think it's very flexible. Yeah, it's online, but it's very flexible, and it's very methodical. You'll see that it follows the structure of the ordinance, and it covers most of the areas of the ordinance in terms of what if this, what if that. And on top of it, we're going to provide, a user's guide. It's going to be available for the property owners so that they know how to use it. And we're going to provide other documents that are going to help the users. One of them is going to be a frequently asked questions guide, if you want to put it that way, and many other documents as the time progresses. One thing that is important is that landlords have to raise their every year before December 30th of that year. So it's not this year that they have to raise them, because you know how it is. People move in and people move out. So in order to keep a good count of, or be consistent with the units that are out there and they're being rented, we need to have that process in place. And that's a responsibility of the landlords. But it is good for you to know that, because that's the only way that you're going to also be able to see if your landlord is fulfilling their obligations. Something else that is important is that the tenants may file a petition with the Department of Community Development if they believe a rent increase is not in compliance with the ordinance. So if you, for whatever reason, you come back and you receive that notice of rent increase notice, and you believe that that's not correct, then you can come to the city, go through the process, and then file a petition. We'll investigate, and then we're gonna find out if that's true or not. Some people get a little bit confused in terms of how to determine the number. or that amount that has to be increased. Very simple, right? We always explain that to everybody, very simple way. So let's say that you are being charged $1,500 a month for your monthly rent. What is the 3%? Well, you multiply by 3, and then you divide by 100. No matter what the amount is, right? You can write down the formula because that's how it works. We believe that we're going to have an opportunity within the web page, that is the landing page that we're going to utilize for all of this information. We're going to have a section to include these formulas, provide that information to you so that it's simpler, right? You can just input the number and then automatically know what is the amount that your landlord is entitled to raise, 3%. But that's the simpler way to determine. If for whatever reason it falls under the 3% and the CPI is lower, right, or maybe 2.5, you may think, well, that's not that simple as the 3%. Well, it's the same formula. Whatever the amount times 2%, 2.5% divided by 100 is going to give you the right amount for you to know. Okay? It's just, this is additional, just because I like mathematics, right? I like the numbers. And besides that, you need to make sure that all of these, the information that we're presenting and the rights you have under this ordinance, be familiar, because that way you can be protected. After July 1st, 2024, the law limits security deposits to 1 month's rent. Unless, and that is important because before, if you remember, there was always discrepancy, right? Well, before, or long time ago, it was 1 month. And then later on, it was just a set amount, $1,500. And then we talked to a few people that they came here to City Hall, and before 2 or 3 years ago, and they stated, well, wait a minute, now my landlord is saying that because they haven't increased the rent, and now there is a cut, they can increase the deposit the amount for the deposit. Within the next 12 months, they're going to increase it to 2 times or 3 times. And people didn't know what to do. So this is going to prevent for the landlords to do that. So this is what we have. And for landlords who own no more than 2 residential rental properties that collectively include no more than a total of 4 units for rent, the limit is twice the monthly rent. I know, a lot of words. So in essence, anybody who owns less than 4 units, they can charge 2 months deposit, or they can request. And with that, basically, we complete this presentation. We're going to have an opportunity to answer all the questions that you may have. But before we get to Paul, that is going to help me with that section, let me just mention that this is the email that we're going to utilize in order to communicate with everybody regarding this program. So make sure that you get it down, you write it down. RSO, R as a rental, stabilization ordinance. That's the first letter of the name of the ordinance. RSO at hpca.gov. I'll move in a second. And the number that you have right there, 323-584-6393. This number, is gonna utilize in order to connect during this phase, which is the development of the registry process, the website, and everything else, and the implementation process. This number is the one that we're going to utilize to communicate with the public. Either if you're a tenant or a landlord, this is the information. So please feel free to send an email if you don't have all the questions that you may have right now, or if something else comes up. let us know. Once the system is implemented, and then we have an opportunity to know how many people are part of this process, then we're gonna go to the next phase, which is the enforcement process, and that's where we're gonna make sure that this ordinance is in place and is being followed by everybody, and then we don't have any issues in terms of dealing with the rights of the tenants, and also with whatever is applicable, whatever rights, whatever protections are for the landlords. And I want to finalize with this. Please engage. You know, this is important. I mean, yesterday we had almost 50 people. I know that we live streamed the presentation yesterday, and I think we have a record, almost 6,000 views, which is a lot. And so people are watching this because this is important. It's for the entire city. So we're gonna open. Thank you for your time. I'm gonna pass this to Paul Bollier. He is the planning manager for the community development department. He's gonna be answering any questions. And then if we don't have any questions from you, we have some questions available that we got yesterday that we believe that are important and that it will be good to address. So thank you, and then I'm gonna pass the microphone and also 2 microphones to Paul. This one, well, I'm gonna put it over here. And this one, so I can capture it again. Thank you. And I'm sorry, before we move to Paul, I just want to acknowledge that we have, I already introduced Paul, but we have Bryce. He is with the Human Resources, the manager with Human Resources. We have Eddie Eduardo Sarmiento, our city clerk. And we have Stephanie with Communications, and also Paulina, that is also part of the Communications team. Thank you. Questions?
All right, good evening, everybody. Again, thank you for coming out and allowing us to present to you. And I know you've submitted some questions on cards, so we're going to go through those, and we'll go through some other questions from yesterday, and then we'll see what other opportunities are after.
Thank you, Paul. First question, are all rentals included in the ordinance?
So all properties are required to register with the city, and the landlord property owners have the ability to show that status as exempt. For example, the unit where there was 2 properties and the property owner lived in one, he or she still has to register the property, and they still have to go in there and show it as exempt for the reason that we just said. So everybody have to register the property.
Thank you. Next question, what are tenant rights regarding illegal units?
So before the rent stabilization came out, there's always been an avenue for you folks to reach out to building and property building issues that you needed to address, which is the code enforcement department. That code enforcement department's been here long before this discussion today. So the avenue for you to bring up concerns about the property, the conditions inside, outside, reach out to the code enforcement department and file your claim with them, and an officer will come out and investigate. We'll reach out to the property owner if we find a violation. We allow them 2 weeks to cure the violation, and if we have to do further enforcement, depending what the violation is, we'll work with them to make sure that whatever your needs are addressed.
And the second part to this question, does a landlord need to pay relocation fees if he needs to demolish the unit?
So if the landlord is choosing to demolish a location such as this, they do have to give you 2 months relocation fee if they're going to demolish it. If they're going to ask you to move out because I'm going to do some rental repairs inside and they have to displace you, they have to pay you for 2 months if you're gonna be moving back in, so they do have to do that.
What do I do if I feel the rent is being increased too often?
Okay, so the rent increase can be raised only one time in a 12-month period. So when Sergio started this out, we know we talked about December 19th. So if you get an increase December 30th, you should not get an increase until December 30th or January 1st the following year. Now, if you're getting raised increases above that, then you bring in the proof that is showing why. Why is it going up 2 or 3 times this month? Here's my bill. This is what I paid 4 months ago, and it went up, and it went up again, and it went up again. Show us the proof that where it's going up. If they are reducing items such as they no longer paying for your water, or no longer paying for your trash, or whatever it is, bring all that proof so that we can help support what your concerns are.
If a tenant or owner, property owner, is charging an extra fee for air conditioning, for example, $100 a month extra for use of air conditioning, or $75 to install a ceiling fan, is that part of the ordinance, or is that protected under the ordinance?
That is something separate from the ordinance, but what I suggest you do, you guys also have an opportunity to reach out to LA County Fair Housing. They also are here for you as tenant rights to foster a communication between the landlord and them on behalf of you, and they will start those communications with them to ensure what they are doing is accurate or not, and educate them.
Are there any resources, additional resources, or programs that tenants have access to for either legal or financial assistance?
Last year we did have a rental assistance program. That one has finished. We have no monies from the state at this point to offer other rental programs to the tenants. I advise you to please check back with the city periodically to see if we have anything on our website, to see if we've been awarded any grants that we can help with any rental assistance programs. But right now, we don't have anything.
And the state and the federal government don't have any programs right now.
And in that same vein, is there any supports or resources for tenants who find themselves homeless if they are evicted?
We do have resources. We can get you the number. It's on our website. We have our housing administrator, Isha. She can put you in contact with our fair housing. We can put you in contact with some of our resources, which is our inner city vision, some shelters to get you some housing for you and your children. There's other avenues out there that we can do. We partner with churches and food pantries within the city. So there's other avenues. Don't be ashamed to ask. I mean, it's stuff out there. We all know that. So there are avenues. Just come to the city and ask us.
What rights do we have as tenants regarding eviction?
As far as eviction, we just talked about up here, there's just cause and no just cause, right? So we have the ability the opportunity to be evicted. The property owner may be choosing to move in their family members, and they will take that rental property off the registry and they're gonna move in there. Or maybe that property owner is living somewhere else, has lost that property, and they're gonna come and live in their property now in Huntington Park. They have that ability to do so by giving you notice to vacate, eviction, however you wanna do it. Those are some of the rights, but they have to have a just reason, as we went through earlier, to support why they're asking you to leave.
If the landlord has raised my rent by 10%, who do I report it to?
So, as stated, we do have an opportunity for you to come into the city and submit on a form about what your concerns are. And again, I would ask you to bring the proof of, you know, they're giving some sort of bill of what your bill used to be and what it is, and it's above the 3%. Anything that we can help support you, bring that in to show the difference. Verbal is very hard to go with. I suggest if you do not have it now and you have had a good relationship with your landlord and still do, I ask you to please get a tenant agreement form signed so that you can have that support for you in the future as we progress down the line.
Can a property owner rent out a room where he lives? The property owner lives in the home and he wants to rent a room where he resides.
Yes, he or she could rent that property, that room out. We discussed earlier about that property owner living in that unit has the ability to rent that unit out, which there's not a problem with that.
If the owner raised the rent by 13%, and I pay them only a 3% increase based on the ordinance, what will happen to me?
New question. So if you only pay 3%, I would say, again, you're going to bring that to our attention first. Hey, why am I being charged 13? I'm just going to pay 3%. Bring your documentation why you're supporting that you should only be paying 3%. Bring your landlord, your property manager, whatever bill they're giving you to show the difference of what the increase is. And some of you may have not been receiving bills. Word of mouth, here's my check, I'm mailing it. I suggest again for you to protect for your rights, please get some paperwork and a paper trail. It's hard to say I paid and I don't have a receipt. Do everything that you can to prove that you're paying your rent.
What should I do if my property owner refuses to provide a contact number, or email, and how can I communicate with them, and what should I do?
The property owner or property manager?
Property owner or manager, okay. And they refuse to provide contact information.
So you have to have an avenue to report repairs. You're paying somebody, you've got an address, and if you need assistance on finding that name of that person, we can assist with that.
And last question that is kind of outside the ones that we've already answered tonight is, does the owner need to provide fumigation services? Is that an optional service, or when does that need to occur?
The property owner does have, for safety, health, and welfare, they have to have a habitable place that is safe for you and your children. And if it reaches a point where it's infested with rodents and other items that needs to be fumigated, I urge you again to work with the Fair Housing Foundation. They can reach out to that landlord and discuss what those opportunities are for them to get that resolved. They're not allowed to provide you a property that's just not safe to live in.
That concludes all the written, so if you'd like to open it up, or second?
Yeah, if you have any questions for the board. How the landlords are getting notification of this new ordinance and the fact that they need to come and register their property as a rental property? Okay. I live in a multi-apartment building, which everybody here should know is on Seville and Randolph. And they just sold, somebody else bought it. They just raised everyone 10% before the ordinance came in play. In November, as a matter of fact, in December, started the hike.
December 1st?
December 1st. And they knew what they were doing, obviously.
Sure.
You know.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And they demanded everybody to do a lease.
Versus month to month, you mean?
Versus month to month, the way it was before. And according to them, at the end of the year, when that lease runs out, there's not gonna be no more leasing. So basically, they were just collecting information on everybody, you know, how many people were living in apartments and so on, and proof of income. And they claimed that coming October, November, whenever that lease is over, we don't have to release, that it's gonna go back month to month.
Okay. So a couple questions there. The first one was, we're sending out approximately 8,000 letters to all properties within the city. We pulled up our data from LA County Assessor's Office. Many of them will go to commercial properties and other locations, but unfortunately you have no way to screen that. So hard for us the first go around, but we'll be able to identify that. And on that letter, they're given their parcel number that they live at and a PIN number for them to get in and register that. So when they say, I'm not gonna do it, we'll see that on our system.
Okay.
And so we'll be able to follow up with them and ensure that they do register that. And not only register it, but register it correctly.
Right.
So in regards to the month-to-month versus a lease, that is all within the rights of the property owner to do that.
Right.
But if you do have questions, again, we can give you that number for fair housing. We just met with them today. They're more than willing to have conversations with you folks to guide you on what is allowable and not allowable.
And one thing that is critical is to be clear about the state law also, because before this ordinance became effective in December 19, you were protected by the state law. So if they raise the rent within the year, less than a year, then they were in violation of that law. And Fair Housing Foundation can help you. You know, it's not clear, right? So if, let's say that if your annual rent increase was taking place on March, and then suddenly on November or December they raised the rent, they were in violation because it's supposed to be an annual increase.
Even before this ordinance.
Exactly. So before this ordinance, you were protected by the state law. So
what?
So that you know. And again, we can entertain that question after if you want.
Okay.
And I can give you that number before you leave tonight. If you don't have it, I'll give you the number for fair housing.
Yeah, I have it.
By all means, use it. By all means.
Yeah.
What else do we have? Anyone?
Any additional questions from the audience?
No.
What if the landlord comes and lets us know we're doing a buyout? Basically, we want you out. We're gonna remodel, repair things. And what rights do we have as tenants in that situation?
So if the tenant or the property owner is saying we're gonna do a complete remodel, we want you still to be our tenant, then they have to provide you 2 months rent to relocate. Now, if that's gonna take 4 or 5 months, they're only obligated to do 2 months, and you're choosing to come back. Now, if they're saying they're gonna go ahead and do a full remodel and rent it out or not rent it out, let's just say it's a house, it's a duplex, and they're not gonna rent it out, and they're saying, we're just not gonna rent out, we're gonna fix this, and we don't know what we're gonna do with the property after that. And at that point, they do not have to pay you rent, because they're not asking you to return to the property. But again, now they have to register that property if it's gonna be vacant for more than 24 months. And if they're gonna be caught telling you that in 6 months from now it's rented, then they're in violation.
Anybody else?
Any additional questions, folks?
And you may not have all these questions in your mind right now, remember that, right? So you've got the opportunity here, use them, by all means. You may leave a message thinking they're not gonna call us back, but just times 70,000 people call in the city, we will get back to you. email us, call us.
So I have a question. So for the owner to register its property, is that something that's been implemented for years now, or is it just something new that was implemented through this new rental stabilization ordinance?
That is one that is being implemented now through this registration program.
So earlier you mentioned that there was the increases for the units. So if it's a family home, a single family home, it's considered exempt from the 3% increase, correct?
If they're living there, yes,
If the owner's living there?
yes.
But if the tenants are living there,
Then it's a rental, so it needs to be registered, if I'm understanding you right.
so how do we go about figuring out if it's registered?
The property itself?
Yes.
Meaning, okay, so I can answer that and may better understand. So I'm living in a house, my rent's going up. I wanna know if my property owner's registered? Is that what you're asking, like something like that?
No, well, I
the
just
city?
wanna know, for the single family home,
They're exempt.
they're exempt
Yeah.
from the 3%.
No, they're exempt from this ordinance for everything.
Oh, okay.
They're, yeah.
So it
Single
doesn't apply
family,
the 3%, so they can
nothing.
charge whatever they want increase.
No. Single family, let's say that you have, so I think you're referring to, let's say I own 20 single family homes in the city, correct?
No,
Because
just
if there's
one.
only one, it doesn't apply. The ordinance doesn't apply to that single family home. It's exempt.
Okay.
The
So-
ordinance doesn't apply.
Now, if it's multiple homes, running as a business, that's different.
I got one last question.
And it, I don't mean to cut you short, and it's not to raise whatever they want. We still have state standards that they have to qualify for. If we didn't have this rent stabilization, we still have to manage it to what the state says. That 8% or CPI, whatever the market is at that time. So don't be taken advantage of, they're doing 12%, you have rights.
Okay, the last question is let's say in my case, in the case of the buildings being painted, they're doing a lot of work on it. If they do raise the rent more than 3%, can they use that excuse, hey, we're painting and we doing the landscaping, and I mean, they're doing quite a lot, to be honest with you. It's almost like they're remodeling the outside, it's a lot of, I'm sure it's very expensive.
They're doing cosmetic work.
Yeah,
Make it
it's
look
cosmetic.
nice. That does not add to the longevity of the property. That's a cosmetic. Now, if they went in there and said, I'm gonna change all the heating system out through this whole
Right.
complex, and we're gonna go
Electrical
ahead and
and-
we're gonna re-roof it, there's an opportunity for them to use it like that, because that's extending the life of the building.
Okay,
Painting and all that now. I'm changing my toilet, you're gonna raise my rent $100 because you're changing my toilet a month? No,
right.
that's general maintenance.
Yeah, they're doing, I mean, it's like a new building now. I mean, a lot of cosmetic work.
Any other question?
I'm unsure of the exempt properties. I live in a 4-unit, I'm not sure if it's considered a condo or just an apartment. So would that be exempt? from-
It doesn't sound like it, but I'm not familiar with the property, or I'd have to look at it further.
So this is the thing, right? If you are you a tenant?
Tenant.
Okay, so every single landlord is receiving a letter through the mail, because we're getting the inventory from the county. So they're gonna receive this letter even if this ordinance doesn't apply to the property. And it's up to the landlord to register and to go through the process. If they opt not to be part of this, they're gonna be in violation of the ordinance. And as a consequence, it's gonna be $1,000 violation And in some instances, every day that passes is gonna be $1,000 violation. So no one wants to fall under that. And so that's why the registration letter is very explicit. And it's stating you have to follow this process, otherwise this is a part of the ordinance, the consequence, the violation that is gonna be implemented, and we're gonna come after you. So it's up to them to identify and understand the ordinance. That's why next week we're gonna have two workshops for the property owners, and then we're gonna continue having more workshops until everybody understands this process, everything is clear. We have enough documentation up there, posted on the website, printed down here and all over the places, so that you and everybody else living here in HB understands what this ordinance is. Okay? So let's see that the reason we ask for questions is because we want to document it.
No, but I'm piggybacking on you.
Otherwise, we have no way to document that. That's
No,
why
no.
we ask for the.
I'm piggybacking, I'm with you on this.
Okay.
How do you identify all these people that are renting?
Because we need the property owners. The property owners are the ones who have to register.
Yeah, but if they choose not to,
Okay.
do you understand what I'm saying?
So let me
You
ask, I want to go back to her before we get to you. Pushing a button is exempt is not easy, and I walk away, I'm a owner. Every exempt that comes through the city gets physically identified and pulled up and researched by city staff. They have to provide documentation, they have to provide why the reason it's exempt. It's not as easy as you think, oh, I'm just gonna push exempt, I got 8 units, I'm cool. It's not like that. We research it for you to make sure that it is correct. And then in regards to you, the exempt status of it, what was your question? Sorry.
No. How, you have you got lots of people renting.
Right.
How do you identify those people that don't want to come forward and say, hey, I'm a landlord, I'm renting this thing, because you got a lot of people that are even renting garages and, renting a property that shouldn't be rented, spaces that shouldn't be rented. How do you, unless somebody walks in here and complains, obviously, but how, as a city, you get to know who these people are?
Well, like I said, we sent out 8,000 letters. And at the end of all this, every one of those letters have to register, whether they're choosing exempt or I have rental. If one just says, I'm not going to do it, we just heard what the violation is. It's costly for them. Okay. And we will be sending out notifications. We'll knock on doors. We'll make sure that they're registering. And it may not be the property owner living there, but we have all resources to find out who it is, where they live, and how to contact them. So nobody will go by and sneak. There's no way to sneak by on this. Now, if something slips by and we didn't see that there was an exempt or something happened, it's you folks that are going to come up and say something, and then we find out they didn't register in the first place because the building was something that came across as a commercial building versus residential. Because on the back of it, back in 1945, there's a house, but LA County Assessor's Office, it shows this as a commercial property. This is real stuff. It'll be you folks coming out saying, hey, they raised my rent 12%. Oh, we find out that property owner didn't register. By the way, property owner, since December 19, 2025, when you're raising no rent 12%, you're gonna go back to 3%, plus you're in violation for not registering your property.
Yeah, no, and we can go back on the presentation. There's a provision for that. And the provision is, remember, if they register, they have to post that registration letter, confirmation, on a common area. If not, they have to provide a copy of it by certified mail, or they have to, through a messenger system, whatever, mail carrier system. So if you don't see that that means that they haven't raised
They
the
haven't
unit.
done it, yeah.
That's the provision. That's the balance, the check and balance, right? That's the check. If you don't see that, then that means that they haven't raised it, right? Maybe they forgot, but if you, then you as a tenant, that's why it is very important to be here today, because now you have the ammunition. If you don't see that, now you can tell them, hey, based on the ordinance, you're supposed to provide a document. Where is it? You know, and then otherwise we're gonna have, I'm gonna have to report it, right, to the city. We're gonna have to find a way to, and that protocol is gonna be implemented. It's gonna be placed. It's gonna be presented to everybody, not just the landlords, but to everybody. It's gonna be available online and also printed, as I mentioned, to everyone.
Okay.
So,
And then, one real quick to finish yours. Mind you, we haven't met with the landlords yet.
Yeah.
We have not met with the landlords.
That's
They
coming
may not
up.
even come to this session when we have them. But
Right.
when they start receiving these letters, they'll definitely get understood and say, I should have listened, I should have followed up, and they'll be calling the city.
So if they have registered, obviously, in a few months, I mean,
Yeah.
like, they should be
Yeah.
posting something.
Yes.
Or sending the letter
Yes,
or
you
contacting
have to be-
everybody
As the
individually.
ordinance showed, and you can always see our ordinance. We keep referring to the ordinance, folks. Please go to our website. It's right there.
Okay.
It's not a long read. You're looking at about 6 pages. I've read it about 8 times already.
Yeah.
You know, 12 pages, sorry. Mine's double-sided, sorry.
That's right. That's right. But the most important part of this is for us to be aware of one. Number two, we understand that there is a process, right? We're not there yet. But the third part, that is the informational element, or is an element that is very critical, is that right now we almost finished the development process. We're gonna move very soon into the implementation, and then we're gonna get to the enforcement. And that's where
That's important.
inspectors
That's
are
important.
gonna go out and check on all of those individuals that we believe should be registered, and they're not.
Well, that's what
So
I needed to hear.
let's-
That's what I was
let's-
asking.
Yeah, the enforcement. So we have a question here, and then,
Buenas noches. Yo necesito hacer, yo sé que son muchas, pero son 3 preguntas que me gustaría hacerlas. La primera es,
no quisiera platicar conmigo al final para que yo le responda, porque ya avanzamos toda la presentación. A lo mejor es muy simple, sus preguntas se las
Sí.
puedo responder.
son
¿Sí? ¿Gusta o de todas las quiere hacer? ¿Las quiere hacer? Para que...
me gustaría hacerlas.
Ok, haga.
¿Cada cuánto tiempo pueden subirle a uno la renta?
Cada 12 meses,
12 meses.
nada más. How often can we raise the rent? 12 months.
Le explico por qué, un poquito rápido, porque a nosotros antes del año ya nos están subiendo la renta. La segunda, de cualquier cosa, por una cosa muy mínima, aunque sean errores de ellos, luego nos mandan cartas diciéndonos, tienen 3 días para cumplir con esto, porque si no tienen que desocupar, hasta por errores de ellos, porque perdieron el cheque que les enviamos. Entonces tenemos que ir rápido a buscar comprobantes de que sí mandamos la carta. Y la otra es que nos mandan que va a aumentar la renta porque subió el agua. Por ejemplo, así esta última vez nos dijeron, vamos a tener que subir la renta porque subió el agua. Entonces somos una casa dividida en 4 partes. Y pues las personas tenemos más de 10 años viviendo ahí. No hay más personas que se diga que se puede gastar más agua.
Okay.
Y no sé si se ha permitido.
Okay. I'm going to ask Paul to summarize it, if possible, because it's that we have a session and we are recording and we're going live, and that's why we wanted to just focus on. Es que estamos grabando, estamos haciendo en vivo a la gente, y por eso es que estaba pensando que podíamos discutirlo después, pero él lo va a responder y la traductora lo va a traducir para usted. Y si sigue teniendo preguntas, con mucho gusto me puedo quedar hasta la medianoche con usted
Muchas gracias.
para repetirle la presentación que tenemos. ¿Ok?
Okay. Thank you for your question. So before this rent stabilization came in, let's not look at that. You have rights as a tenant. We talked about this before, that you have rent increases that are allowable per state requirements only. And that is based on the CPI that we talked about earlier. And right now the market was right around 8.5% that they were allowed to do that annually. Now, if they're doing that multiple times through the year, and then they are doing it for whatever unjust cause that they feel it is, I can't express to you enough. I mean, unfortunately, it's not us who can do this. The Fair Housing has the meat and the bones to be able to take care of this at a state level. And they'll be having those communications with the property landlords to deal with issues like that, and that is your avenue. By all means, you may forget that and you may come to us, and we have no problem talking to you about it further and directing you back to that, giving them numbers, and maybe you have some other issues at the same time that we can help with while you work that one.
And you may want to just elaborate a little bit about the water when someone get an increase, because they say, or the landlord states that the city increase.
Okay. So in regards to your water bill, if your tenant agreement and has that water is included in your rent, they can't increase your rent because the water bill just went up unless they give you notification. They have the right to do it, but they have to have the proof to show the water. Why did it go up? Do they have a water leak? Did the water cost in the city go up? They have to be able to support why it is. They can't just arbitrarily do it. It's not fair.
Me puedo quedar con usted, no se preocupe, de verdad. Así que,
Gracias.
you have.
Yeah, I have a question. So for the registry thing, so is there a website where me, for example, as a tenant, can go on tonight and say, oh, it's the property I'm currently living in registered?
Yes, there is one. Right now we have a web page within the city website that you can learn a little bit more about the ordinance. And there are 6-7 provisions. It's kind of like a summary of the ordinance. And then we have 2 links. One to get a copy of the English version, and then another one to get a copy of the Spanish version. Pretty soon, in a few days, then we'll have that web page, a complete web page with all the documents uploaded there, frequently asked questions, these presentations, user's guide, and other documents, and the registry, which is important. So just give us a few more days.
Okay.
Our system for this is expected to go up by the end of the month. In a perfect world, everything's going good, the letters get mailed out. You should see that notification first on your property. If you don't start seeing that in the next week and a half, and you have questions, by all means, reach out to us. You won't have access to get into the website because they're receiving a certain piece of paper that has their parcel number and a certain PIN number. And it's very protected information because it's your information. So we don't want just people randomly going in. Let me check Bill's property across the street, and all of a sudden they learn who their tenants are and their personal information. But you can always come with us and ask us a question. Didn't see a letter, can you help me out and see if he registered or she registered? And we can research that for you and get an answer. And if we find they have not, then we'll enforce it accordingly.
Okay. Question?
Where can I see this this live?
Is Facebook and YouTube.
Oh, Facebook.
And yesterday was pretty good. Not because I did it completely, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, pretty
And so, I said there were so many questions, right? We almost spent about an hour answering questions. So, Facebook and I think Paulina is gonna put it on Instagram today, and then YouTube. At YouTube is Cedar Huntington Park. the whole presentation is gonna be, every single presentation is gonna be there, including the ones with the landlords next week. And besides the two that we're having with the landlords, we're gonna have another one on the first week of February, and then also the second week of February. Those are the 6 planned meetings at this point, but we also gonna have another meeting from Fair Housing Foundation. If you have questions about your rights that don't, fall or are protected, or they are not included as a provision under this ordinance, please attend this workshop February 4. Write it down if you want to. This is on Facebook and Instagram. Please, follow us on these social platforms, because we provide a lot of good information. February 4 at Sally Park, and they're going to talk about anything related to your rights that applies under federal, regulations and state, and even this ordinance. You'll be able to also ask questions. I encourage you to connect, because right now is probably the best way to make sure that you don't miss any of these meetings. We're going to continue having these meetings, and then on Monday, February 3rd, we're going to have a kiosk outside here, City Hall, and we're going to have a lot of pamphlets, all of these documents printed. You want to stop by, we'll be able to give you a copy. And we hope that by then we'll have something else on the website so that you can download it also.
You will have it in your newsletter, right?
Oh, we'll be sending a newsletter. We'll send a
Yeah,
newsletter.
because I'm
every month.
registered with, I get those. Okay.
Okay.
Can you explain CPI again?
Consumer Price Index. You want to do it? Well, I can do it.
Yeah, good.
That is, so the cost of living goes up. It varies, right, based on the economy and many other factors. We cannot determine exactly how it works, because there are many different elements. But we know that if the economy is good and everything is good and there are good jobs and the nation's economy is good, then there's no inflation, nothing, then the prices of everything they're stable, right? But if not, then they're going up and they're going down. So by utilizing all of those elements, every county, I believe, in the nation, they come up with a number of that is determined as consumer price index, that is an indicator of how things can be raised in terms of rents, like in this case, prices, etc., etc. That's the best approach. I mean, there's more technical description, but that is a number that is being determined in our county right now. For the county of LA is 3.8. That's what it is.
That's what it is now.
Right now. So under that old statute, the California statute associated to the housing, the way the law stated, it was stipulated. It was a 5% in terms of the permitted increases. It was 5%, whatever 5%, plus the CPI or anything lower than 10%. That's what we used to have. And that's why, the 8.8% or 8.7% annually came around. And so probably you receive a letter saying, well, we need to increase this now 8.8%.
But it varied.
That's what it was.
Now it's a flat,
And
no matter what the CPI does, unless it drops.
Yeah. And every year is presented, is announced or published around April. So around April, we know, by this April, we know what the CPI is. And whoever determines that. I guess we're good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, thank you all, everybody.
Okay, thanks.
Before you leave, give me 1 second. Before you leave, we have a very important person here. I want to invite, I think we have the mayor, Mayor Karina Macias. I want to invite her to say hello to you and have a few words.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Karina Macias, Mayor of the City of Huntington Park. Just want to say thank you for being here. As I said yesterday for the meeting in Spanish, I just want to reiterate to have patience with staff. You have amazing staff here in community development and our director who will, are here to help you through all this process. It's a lot to go through. It's all new, so I want to make sure that we continue to support, obviously, our staff, but also support you in this process to make sure that everybody's treated equitable as far as like you as tenants and obviously our property owners. So just want to say thank you again for being here. And I'm here to support as well.
Thank you, Mayor. Round of applause to the Mayor. Thank you very much. And we also have another staff member, our risk management manager right there, Marisol. Thank you, Marisolito. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Paul, Eddie, Paulina, and Stephanie. I mean, we don't have to be here. I mean, they don't have to. I have to be here. But we thank them also for taking the time to help with this workshop that is very important. Feel free to communicate with the city. Use these resources that we have, and as we move forward, we're going to continue providing information. Feel free to come, and if you are here to the city, and if you want to talk to me, schedule a meeting, call me, ask for my email, or talk to me after, ¿verdad? Puede hablar conmigo después de la reunión. Podemos estar aquí hasta la medianoche si ustedes lo gustan, okay? Muchísimas gracias. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you very soon, hopefully at the next meeting. Thank you. Gracias.